Welcome back. Today we're going to be talking about graphing quadratics, again with a focus being on graphing with a graphing calculator. Now, the first example that you see is basically just a step-by-step process telling you exactly what the keystrokes are. So I'm not going to step through that example. I'm going to step through the two at the bottom of the page. The first one is really so you can reflect back when you're doing this yourself if you forget a step. That is exactly what you need to be doing in order to get this graph and table. So I'm going to focus on the bottom. But again, I want you to focus on the top, follow those keystrokes. And so when you do this on your own, that is a step-by-step process. Now, the first thing you want to do, and again, we're going to start with this one down here. The first thing you need to do is type it into the calculator. Well, in your calculator, in order to graph, you need to click y equals. So it's this button up in the upper left corner. All right, y equals. It should take you to a screen that looks somewhat like this. Now, when you're to this screen, all you have to do is type in your function. Now, the variable is always that button right there. The one that is currently highlighted red is what you always use for your variable. So x squared minus 2x minus 5. All right. Now, once you have it typed in order to plot appropriate points, you're going to actually need some points. Now, instead of making you calculate a bunch of points yourself, what I'm going to let you do is use your table. Now, to get to the table on the calculator, it is actually right above the graph button. So remember, whenever you have something coded blue, what that means, you have to hit second and then that button. So I hit second and then graph. And what you're looking for is a symmetric pattern. So hopefully you remember from class that there is a vertex, a minimum or maximum value. Now, what I want you to notice here is notice this value of -6 right here. Okay? I want you to notice values as you work above it and values as you work below it are the same. You have a symmetric pattern there. So that negative or that 1, -6 is that point that I'm looking for, that vertex. All right, and we'll get more into that later, but I just want you to know that's where your table is going to start. So when you come back to your table, the first value you should put down is that center point, okay? That point that begins creating that symmetry in your graph. And now you're going to need a couple more points around it. So I'm also going to put in 0, -5, 2, -5. Then I'm also going to use -1, -2, and 3, -2. Again, notice that symmetry, that above and below that -6, you're getting the same numbers. That's important. That's how we knew to start at that value. So now in order to actually graph it, what you want to do is just start plotting those points. So -1, -2 is going to be right there. 0, -5 is going to be right there. 1, -6. 2, -5. 3, -2. And again, my graph is not perfect, but once you plot those points, you can see your parabolic shape. And to make sure that you've done it right, remember, you can always go back to the calculator, hit graph, and that's what your graph should look like. And lucky for us, that is what ours looks like. So let's practice with one more, just to make sure we're getting a hang of how this works. All right, so I'm going to go back. So now I'm going to focus on this one right here. All right, so I need to go and now get ready to graph my next one. So again, the steps I'm going to follow, I'm going to go in the calculator. I'm going to go into y equals. Now, if there's already something there, just hit the clear button to clear that out because we're starting with a fresh graph. We don't need the previous one, so just clear it out, and now we'll be ready for our next one. So, negative 2x squared plus 4x plus 5. So once you have it typed into that y equals, again, we need to go to the table. We need to see what values we can use. So second, to get to the table, and again, I'm looking for that symmetry, okay? I'm looking for that point where everything around it begins being symmetric. And here I'm seeing it at this point right here. Notice everything above the 7 starts mirroring what is below the 7. So that 1, 7 point, that is going to be that vertex. So that's going to be the point that I start at in my table. And now I'm going to put 2 points above it and 2 points below it. And those are going to be the points I plot to get the general shape of my quadratic, the general shape of my parabola. So negative 1, 1, 0, 5, 2, 3, 4, 5 puts me right there. 1, 7. And I apologize, I know my lines on here are a little bit difficult to see. 2, 5, and 3, negative 1. So there are my points, and now all I have to do is connect them to get my curve. Once you do that, I recommend just using your calculator. Check, go into graph, just to check and make sure that it looks like what it should. There's the general shape that you're getting, and notice that is what we put on our paper, so that means that we've done it correctly. All right, so again, make sure you have all this written down. I thank you for joining me, and make sure you ask if you have any questions.